Let's talk about why it's so hard to lose fat, build muscle in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. I know as a guy in my late 30s, it seems like my body doesn't change as fast as it did when I was in my early 20s, but why is that? So let me break it down for you. So what naturally happens when we get into our 30s? Well, usually we start expanding our career, our responsibilities, our to-do list, our laundry list literally gets longer. And what do a lot of people do in their 30s? Well, they start a family, right? They get married, they have kids.
Kids?
And with kids comes a tremendous amount of additional responsibility and a lot less time to dedicate to your personal goals. I speak from experience. I had 2 kids in my early 30s and my schedule went from being wide open to kid stuff, literally 24/7, less sleep, more stress, all sorts of stuff going on 24/7. So when you have fitness goals and you're like, I gotta get my body in shape, I gotta take care of my health, it can seem like a huge mountain to climb versus when you were in your early 20s and you had every weekend to yourself, you had nights to yourself, you had just everything lined up perfectly. Maybe you didn't take full advantage of it, but now you're looking back thinking, man, I used to have it made when it came to time. So we have this assumption that it's harder, and it is, but not why you think it's harder, right? It's because you have less time to dedicate to yourself and you have more things pulling your schedule in many different directions. So how do we fix this? Well, I have some really simple stuff that will work like gangbusters if you implement it. It's stuff that I teach my clients and stuff that I utilize myself, being a dad of 2 boys that I use every single day. All right, so let's get into how to actually change, how to lose fat, build muscle in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. I'm gonna give you the best tips that I personally use and my clients use inside of our True Transformation System. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. First thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna set up what we call your yearly checkpoints. And these are basically the seasons throughout the year where you're gonna have specific focused targets, goals that you're trying to accomplish during parts of the year. This does a couple things. Number one, it helps you stay clear on what you're actually trying to accomplish. Don't want you feeling like you're spread too thin. You already have tons of responsibilities like we talked about earlier. Focusing on one main thing through a certain period of time throughout the year will allow you to just be clear, allow you to feel in control and focused. So there's a few different ways you could do this. The obvious 2 things that we're gonna talk about are losing fat, building muscle, and then I'll throw a third one in there, maintenance, which I think a lot of people ignore, that will help you with both of these goals as you move throughout the year. So how do we set up checkpoints? I suggest picking dates throughout the year that are meaningful to you. I'll run through a couple of the ones that I choose. So I always choose Valentine's Day as one of my checkpoints because that's my wife and I's wedding anniversary. I'm never gonna forget that. So it has me focused up until Valentine's Day. And then I'll set another one for Memorial Day. And then I'll set another one for 4th of July. And then I'll have my birthday, which is in October. And these checkpoints allow me to have chunks of time where I'm focused on one goal at a time. Now that we've broken out our checkpoints and we have specific seasons throughout the year, let's talk about how to tackle these 3 main goals that I talked about. Number 1 being building muscle. The thing I want you to eliminate right off the bat is this whole aggressive bulking, eating as much as possible, trying to get huge mentality. If you're out there thinking, man, I really want to add some size, let me save you a lot of headache and tell you bulking in an extreme way is not your answer. Okay, the last thing you want to do is start eating every calorie in sight, going through fast food drive-thrus every day, ordering double this, double that, and all of a sudden you're packing on body fat, not muscle. It's really, really easy as you get into your late 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond to fall into the trap of thinking you're adding muscle when in reality, you're just adding a ton of fat that you're gonna have to lose at some point, okay? Building muscle takes time. Unless you're a genetic freak who more than likely wouldn't be watching this video because you've already built a ton of muscle, you're probably not gonna build muscle any faster than the average person, which for most people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, 1 to maybe 5 pounds of muscle a year at best is really what you're hoping for. Now, if you think that sounds small, go to your grocery store, go to your butcher shop and take a look at what a pound of actual meat looks like and tell me that that isn't a significant amount. Imagine a few pounds of meat on your body. That's a lot of new tissue. This, of course, assumes you're being consistent for chunks of time throughout the year with training, nutrition, rest, and recovery. But avoid extreme bulking. Think about eating slightly more calories than you burn every day. So if you burn 3,000 calories a day, eating about 3,000 to 3,500 calories is really where you want to live. And you want to monitor the scale and make sure you're not adding weight rapidly. a couple pounds of extra weight per month is the most you want to do, because honestly, when you enter into a fat loss phase and you have checkpoints throughout the year where you are trying to get leaner, you're gonna lose a lot of this extra weight because not all of it is muscle. A lot of it's water, some tiny little bit is probably fat. You're gonna have to lose that when you're getting lean. So don't fall into the trap of this aggressive bulking crap. It just doesn't work. Be methodical and think about getting stronger in the gym, improving your performance, using nutrition to fuel your workouts, but not add a bunch of body fat as you go through this process. It's just gonna make your life a lot harder and make you a lot more unhealthy. All right, so let me save you a huge training mistake that I see a lot of people make, especially in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, because they hit the panic button, right? They go, oh my gosh, my life's halfway over. I better start doing a boatload of cardio. I better go join Orange Theory and CrossFit. And I'm not here to knock those things because those things have their time and place. But I want to talk to you about how to be effective with your training program. This will save you endless amounts of time, so pay attention to this one. There's two things I'm going to talk about. Number one, working out, okay, is always about building muscle or maintaining muscle. Think about it. It's anti-aging, okay? As you get older, your body starts to break down and starts to deteriorate. We almost become babies again, right? If you think about it, we build up and then we kind of come down. It's like a mountain, right? You get to the top, your peak physical condition, and you start to deteriorate. It doesn't have to be that way, or at least doesn't have to be that fast. The fastest way to hold on to muscle is just to train for muscle all the time. So don't go in the gym with this mentality of, I'm here to burn a bunch of calories, I'm here to sweat and torch the fat. Like, the fat loss comes from controlling your nutrition, controlling how much movement you do, which we'll talk about a strategy for nutrition at the end. But let me give you this really important way of looking at training. Okay, there's two things that you want to pay attention to. Bear with me because there's a little bit of science, but it's easy to understand. The first one is called RPE, rate of perceived exertion. So in other words, how hard you're working out. Like, you go in the gym, scale 1 to 10, 10 being like, oh my gosh, that was the hardest workout ever. 1 being, I slept through that workout. RPE is the way we measure how hard a workout is. The other way you measure the difficulty of workouts is what's called RIR, reps in reserve. This is how many reps you could have done after you finish your set. So for example, if I'm doing a set of bench press and I'm trying to aim for 10 reps and I do 10 reps, but gun to my head, I probably could have done 3 more, then I've done a set with 3 RIR, 3 reps in reserve. If that was confusing, go back and watch it again. But those two things determine how we set up our training program. And this works for every training program out there, whether you train 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, or 7 days a week. These two factors will help you scale your training up and stay consistent with training. So how do we break this up? Well, when we have seasons, like I talked about earlier, and you have, let's call it an 8-week season or a 12-week season where you're trying to build muscle or lose fat, your training program can be structured so that over the course of those 8 to 12 or sometimes longer phases, your intensity and difficulty of workouts gets higher and higher and higher. So let me make it simple for you. Let's say you're doing bench press like we talked about, and the first couple weeks, your rate of perceived exertion is like around a 6 or 7. You know, it's like hard, but it's not insanely hard. It's just building. Your reps in reserve are, I could have probably done 2 or 3 more. That's the target that we have, right? So we want the exertion to be a 6 or 7, 3 reps in reserve. Well, every week or 2 weeks, we want to make that more challenging. So how do we do that? Well, a lot of different things. We can do heavier weight. That's probably the easiest way, right? You add weight to your sets, makes it harder. Your exertion goes up. You have less reps in reserve. You could do challenging exercises that maybe you didn't do before that are harder, okay? Over time, over that 4, 8, 12-week period, you're progressively getting stronger. You're managing your rest period, so maybe you have less rest in between sets, which makes the next set harder. And you start to measure the exertion rate and the reps in reserve over time so that by the end of that phase, you have peaked, okay? You have gotten to the point where exertion is a 10. Workouts are tough. You have no reps left in the tank. At that point, you would start all over. You would pick new exercises, okay? You would say, okay, I did a bench press. Next time I'm gonna do a dumbbell press, or I'm gonna do a 1-arm dumbbell press, or I'm gonna do a press with an exercise band and dumbbells. You're gonna make it more challenging, but you're gonna start with less exertion. So you're gonna do reps that allow you to feel like, yeah, it was a 6 or 7. I got 3 or 4 reps left in the tank. And over the course of the next 8 to 12 weeks, I'm gonna build that up. all right? If that seems confusing, I get it. It took me a while to learn this stuff, but I'm giving it to you now so you don't have to search, the endless valleys of the internet for how to make your workouts more effective to build more muscle and burn fat. This is the truth. This is what'll save you tons of time. And in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, you don't got a lot of time. So this is helping you, all right? So go back and watch that section again if you misunderstood it. We have a lot of videos on how to build muscle. You can check the links in my bio. Just go to the rest of my channel and check out all the videos we have on building muscle. But this is how you structure your training so that you build muscle continuously as you move forward, or at worst case, hold on to the muscle that you have, which is obviously just as important. Let's finish things up with my best nutrition tip for people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. So how do you lose fat? Well, you control your calories. That's the name of the game. The two most important and effective ways that I found over the years of controlling your calories are controlling your meal times and the meals that you eat. It's really simple, but people screw this up all the time. They try to eat 6 meals a day. They try to eat different foods every day. They have no clue what the structure and script of their meals even looks like. So what I suggest you do is get away from this whole eat every 2 hours deal. That's just gonna stress you out. You already got so much going on. And instead do one of a few things. First off, stick to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? 3 meals a day, larger meals, more satisfying meals, less you gotta worry about, right? And ultimately will become normal very quickly. Or practice what I call intermittent fasting. Skip breakfast entirely. Heck, you could even skip lunch if you just weren't hungry and eat really large meals later in the day. So a lunch and a dinner, or a lunch, mid-afternoon meal and dinner. If you're skipping lunch, you could do an early evening meal and a late night meal. My point is, you gotta get away from trying to eat all the time. It's just gonna disrupt your flow. It's gonna be too stressful. So the next thing is having go-to meals. These are meals that basically can be put together on autopilot. You've made time and time again. They taste good. They're easy to put together. 3 to 5 ingredients, foods you love that also fill you up and keep you satiated. Having meals that are consistent, that you eat all the time, once again, eliminates guesswork. And we talked about it earlier. You just don't have the bandwidth to be dealing with novelty all the time, coming up with ideas, thinking, what am I gonna eat today? How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna cook? Forget all that. Have your go-to meals that require very little prep, very little thought, and do that 90% of the time. So that way, the 10% of the time where you eat out, or you have date nights, or stuff with the kids, or travel, you're not stressed. You do your best, right? Because most of the time, you're locked into your go-to meals. That's the secret to nutrition and mastering fat loss, especially as you get deeper into life and age and all that fun stuff. All right, so that's where we're gonna wrap up. These are the best tips for people who wanna lose fat, build muscle in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. I did put together a whole nother video on this exact topic a while back. I linked it for you in the description below if you're interested in expanding on this topic. But if you found this helpful, let me know. Leave a comment. Let me know what your biggest struggle is when it comes to losing fat and building muscle, and I'll do my best to answer. And if you found the channel helpful, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Josiah Novak, True Transformation, Life Moves Fast, Make It Count. Talk to you on the next one.